So in this video, I just want to briefly talk about what JSON Web Tokens are and how they work. This is JWT.io. It's a helpful website to learn more about JSON Web Tokens. You can see it has this box here where you can actually paste in a token and it'll give you the different parts of it, which I'll talk about in a second. But essentially what happens is we authenticate a user. Remember, authentication and authorization are two different things. We've already implemented authentication where we take an email and a password, we authenticate it against the database. Now, authorization is having that user access certain parts or certain protected routes in the API, and we do that by sending the JSON Web Token. So essentially when we log in, it's going to create and it's going to sign a JSON Web Token with a secret key. That way the server can tell if it's been tampered with. And then that token gets sent back to the client, and we can use that. We can store it in the client, we can store it in the browser, so when we have to access any protected routes, we can send that token in the header. As far as what this includes right here, you can see there's basically three different parts. So there's a header, which consists of the type of the token, which is going to be JWT, and then the algorithm that was used to sign the token. Now the payload data is what we actually choose. So typically we'd send a user ID or a session ID, something to identify the user we would put in the payload. You want to be sure not to put secure data like passwords or bank account numbers and stuff like that. So typically we'll just send a user ID, that way the server can receive it and we can do a database call and we can get that user. And then the last part is the signature, and the signature is used to verify that nothing has changed along the way, and it verifies that the sender is who they say they are. Now if we just hop over to Postman, right now when we hit this login route, it authenticates us, but we're only getting some basic user data. We're not getting a token that we can use to send to a protected route. So in the next video, we're going to make it so we can send a token back. And the way that that will work is once we get it, let's say that this route here was protected, and we'll create our own middleware for that to protect routes. But if this was protected, we would have to, in the headers, send an authorization value, and we would put the token. Now, this is a token that we're bearing, so the typical convention is to use bearer and then whatever the token is. Okay, so we want to format it like that, and that's how the server will get it, and then we can validate it. Now, with Postman, you can send with this authorization tab, you can actually choose bearer token, and you can put your token in here to send it. So that's what we'll be doing to, until we get to our front end. When we get to our front end, we'll take the token and we'll store it in the client, and then we'll send it with Axios. Or of course you could use fetch if you want. So that's an overall picture of how this works. It might sound confusing, but as we move along and we actually code it out, it's going to become more clear. And the way that we actually generate the token and sign it and all that is with this package here, node JSON Web Token, or just JSON Web Token. So we want to install this and go down here, just show you. So once we install it, we can bring it in, and then we can sign it with a secret key, and we can pack in the payload, whatever we want in the payload, which in our case is going to be the user ID. So I hope that explains at least a little bit of how this works, and in the next video we'll install JSON Web Token and we'll start to get this set up.